Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Julius Baer play-in stage. I am here with content creator, international master, coach with a peak rating of 24.38 hit 2 years ago, the astounding, the amazing international master, David Cruz. David, it's a pleasure to see you here, man.
Vic, only thing astounding is your level of research. Wow, looking up my FIDEs and all that. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'll be honest, I just checked your Chess.com profile like 5 minutes ago to sound smart at the start, so we're doing great on that. Welcome everyone.
It worked. You're off to a flying start.
Let's do it. Let's hope also the players will be off to a flying start. This is the Generation Cup play-in phase. Yesterday we had some technical issues, a DDoS attack, which is why our service got interrupted. So the match phase, David, is going to happen today. And we have some super exciting matchups. We'll show you those, which have been happening at the moment. But first, before we do that, let's go a little bit about the technicalities that we have.
Absolutely.
So
what's
okay, I'll go first.
Okay, there goes our flying start. So what's at stake in?
Okay, go first.
What's at stake in the matches you're about to watch today, folks? We're going to be watching matches that have a spot in Division 1. So there are 8 players who have a chance to play in Division 1 of the Julius Baer Cup. They're going to play 4 matches, and the winner of each match will advance to Division 1, while the loser of each match will find their way down to Division 2. And Vic, have you ever seen Division 2?
I have seen Division 2. There has been some exciting names in Division 2, especially like last time we had Denis Lazavik doing an incredible job, fighting his way all the way to Division 1 for this Generation Cup, where he's been knocking it into. And you kind of touched the format already, so let's jump into that very quickly as we move through all these. Like, what's going to happen today? Well, we had 72 players from the Swiss yesterday qualifying to the match play phase. And these players are going to duke it out, and depending on how they're standing in the standings, they'll either be in Division 1, 2, or 3.
Or out. For 20 of them, this will be the end of the Baer Cup.
This will be the end of the Baer Cup. I like the Baer Cup.
Yeah.
10 minutes plus 2 seconds is going to be the format we're going to be seeing today. A match consists of 2 games, and whoever wins it, wins it. Will there be a draw? We'll have Armageddon. Actually, one of the more awesome things about this format, David, is we had the top 4 selecting their opponents from places 5 to 8.
Yeah.
That's going to be a lot of pressure.
I see somebody at Chess.com with a really bright idea there to create a little bit of a storyline, a little bit more flavor. Like, okay, instead of 1 playing 8 and 2 playing 7, we tell number 1 to pick their opponent, and then we say, oh, look, they picked you, they think you're weak, and then, you know, oh man, I see that. That's a great move from a production standpoint, from a creating a show standpoint. I approve. So
we approve the storylines.
Do you know which of these players from today was in position 1 and who selected who? Do you have that info from yesterday?
Yes, I believe I certainly do. So Fabi was first. Alireza finished second. I believe Pavel finished third, and Jan finished fourth. So these were the ones that they could choose from. I know Alexei Dravy came in 8th, so Fabi picked the lowest one. And Pavel had a bit of a difficult matchup at the choose between Amin Tavatabai and Rauf Mamedov. Came for Rauf Mamedov, which is going to be exciting. So there's a lot to unravel here. There's a lot to talk about. First things first, Alireza versus Eduardo will be postponed. They will not be playing today. They'll be playing on August 8th, so later on. Also, the match between Pavel and Rauf will start an hour later. So lucky for the chess fans, you're going to get an hour of extra content instead of them all starting at the same time. But for now, we're going to look at Fabi versus Alexei and Jan versus Amin. First things first, David, what do you think when you see all these awesome matchups?
When I see all these names, I think that the only player who's sort of a clear favorite is Fabi, although asterisk on this, these are 2-game matches. So basically, if you make one blunder, it doesn't matter how much better you are than your opponent, because they're all super GMs or within a few points of being super GMs. So you make one mistake, you lose a game. It doesn't matter if you're the favorite. You know, that's it in a 2-game match. You know, if it were like a 6-game match or something like that, then you'd say, oh, Fabi's kind of an overwhelming favorite maybe. But in 2-game matches, it could go either way, but he's the only one who's a real favorite. All the other matches look really close and hard to figure out who's going to come through. And then I think one of the most interesting questions is whether, old dudes or young dudes are gonna be the winners.
We're gonna find out right now, David, because the young dudes and the old dudes have started. We have Fabiano Caruana against Alexei Dreyev, and we also have Jan Nepomniachtchi duking it out against Amin Tabatabai. Which one do you want to start off?
Yeah. Let's start with the game you don't have up, just to make your job a little bit more difficult, juggling production and commentary. So I'm going to request.
I could. Are you serious? I will.
Tabatabai.
I will do that.
Yeah.
Look at this. You ready for this? Bam.
I'm ready for it. Oh, with the
flip.
Bing bang.
Oh my god, that is a difficult one.
Nice.
All right.
Nepo's got that chess theme going, very white and black on his camera. Very nice. Very nice.
He's in the dark rooms, as I think most of us are when we're, it's late, you're playing some chess, it's 4 a.m., you're losing rating. Don't know exactly why you're still playing and trying to get back into the grind, but let's jump in. Jan Nepomniachtchi here, opening with the close Sicilian. Is that something you play a lot?
Isn't he playing... the position I'm looking at is the Catalan.
There you go, Catalan. You know the openings better than me. I do see a pawn on b4, c4, and we see b6 being played.
Yeah, so there was a bit of a think there from Nepo. He wasn't sure about h6. Catalan, obviously, one of the most disputed or explored openings in the last couple of years. Way up there, Magnus has loved it, Nepo's loved it, all the top players pretty much. It used to be like, Kramnik's specialty, and now everybody's trying to do it. Same with the Berlin. Kramnik actually kind of set some of our openings for the next 20 years, about 20 years ago. But, generally speaking, I've played this position from black side a little bit more than from white side. And that move h6 by Tabatabai was a slightly unusual move that made Nepo stop and think. And now we see one of the points of it is that when white advances e5, it gives the knight on f6 a square to hide on h7. It may seem like a very, very weird square, but it is one of the points of this variation, is to keep that knight over on the king side where it can defend against white's checkmating attacks. Otherwise, sometimes when e5 comes in, the knight could be forced back to e8, and then what it does is it sort of blocks up your whole back rank, right?
Yeah.
Like, your rook on f8 can't move, so your king can't evacuate if he wants to. You can't put a bishop or a knight on f8 to defend anything because the rook is stuck on that square. So actually a very, very clever defensive move. And I think Amin looks pretty confident so far.
Yeah, Amin only spent 20 seconds in the opening, as we see, which is super impressive. He definitely is still in his prep to a certain extent, and moving his knights back twice, now to h7, and now going back to b8. I think he's telling us that he has time to wait to improve his pieces in the position.
Yeah, I was sort of expecting on this last move for him to go queen c7, queen c2, trying to sort of rush towards the relative safety of an endgame, because, well, I've sort of assumed it, but for anyone who doesn't have much experience, the pawn on e5 on its own gives white so much space towards the king side that we kind of expect white to play for a king side checkmating attack. That's sort of an assumption in this pawn structure. And so, therefore, the idea of, trying to trade pieces off for black and avoid getting checkmated.
Yeah, I'm actually super surprised with this move a5, David. I thought this knight went to b8 because he wanted to jump all the way to c4. But apparently he has some other ideas. He could still do it, obviously. Maybe a6 and b4 is the way for him to go forward. But some impressive stuff. This one is definitely heating up for the start. I actually want to go back to the other game and see how Fabiano against Alexei Dreyev are doing, because they were also playing a very interesting opening that I wanted to look into.
Yeah. A bishop b5 Sicilian. From Fabi, he's got a lot of experience with that line. And Dreyev played, I think, an unusual move. Based on the position I see in front of me, I'm thinking he played knight to d4 pretty early.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, not overly early, but yeah, okay, so he's... I feel like often in the past, Fabi would have traded on c6 much sooner if given the chance. And this time he really delayed it. He's got a big choice here where he can take back either way, knight or either pawn. All three moves are plausible with sort of different kinds of, with different structures, but they're all plausible structures for white. He goes for very nice pawn center. But with the c file for the rook instead of a b2 pawn sitting on c3 to support the center extra. Feeling without that knight on c6, there's not much pressure against d4, and that's kind of critical for black in this structure, would be to have some pressure against the d4 pawn.
Yeah, I play this a lot with the black pieces, these kind of purge modern setups, and these early e5 rushes before I castle are like the vein of my existence, because they're very hard to move forward. Even if I already castled, you try to put your knight back to e8, and suddenly the pawn is on d6. If you move to d7 now, like it breaks open your structure very fast. It seems like white has a super... Actually came out of the opening perfectly as they want.
Yeah, I mean, this is a surprising move from Fabi, going straight for the throat rather than sitting behind his center and squeezing, to try and just spend time and energy in the first 10 moves of the game, advancing past the 4th rank, initiating stuff, and seemingly d takes e5, d takes e5, queen takes d1 would help black somewhat with their problems by getting queens off the board. But Fabi must have calculated something here after like knight d7. He must have something very specific in mind, like knight to d5, bishop takes e5, and then some tactic there before black's able to organize their pieces.
Yes, exactly. And it's a big choice. I think I would have taken this pawn instantly and traded the queens and feel good about my position. I'm not as pointed, but as you pointed out, maybe let's go back to that line. In case of this happening, maybe just a simple f4, and we're dominating this knight. We have a very nice position, and we can slowly build up these kind of structures. And the Dwarf bishop is out of commission at the moment, so super interested to see what will happen.
That's definitely playable, your idea. Should give white a strong advantage as well. I think what you said about just blitzing out the queen trade is what we might do if we were playing a bullet game against somebody with our own rating. But when you're playing Fabi and he plays this move e5 so early and it's a little bit of a surprise, anytime a strong player plays a move that surprises you, that's where the warning bells go off immediately, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And these players are always on the level of saying, okay, what is my opponent's idea? What are they trying to do? And it's always about, that thing where it's like, I know that you know that I know that you know that I'm going to do this, right?
It's leveling. You play some poker, right?
I don't play poker.
Oh.
But...
That's where I thought you got it from.
But, yeah, but it's this thing where you have to, in order to beat another top player, you have to figure out their idea, then figure out something that's wrong with it. But then you need to make sure that they didn't see your refutation and that they have a refutation ready for that, right? So it's like, you have to really make sure that you're looking very thoroughly, that you've assessed something that's in keeping with their skill level, that you're not assuming a silly mistake that they wouldn't have made.
Exactly. Excellent point. So what do you think of this knight g4? I'm going to break it open. This opens up the e-file in case we're taking. So maybe we're going to try the first bishop f4. Or we're going to kick this knight away. We're going to move it here. We're going to put even some extra pressure. And I really like this idea of pins on pins on pins. Super, super interesting. Maybe in one rule we could even play e6 and break this chain over here. Maybe it doesn't work in this exact position, but... White has plenty of choices to choose from.
E6 could be considered here as well as your other idea. It's definitely a mad scramble for black here because they're basically hoping that white's going to collapse at the d4 or e5 square without landing a blow on black. And that's pretty iffy here, right? As you said, e6, the knight would be hanging on g4. The bishop takes, you take it with the rook. Black's going to drop material, right?
Exactly.
So, white's probably going to come out a little bit ahead there. Against e6, black can also consider f5. I don't think Fabi will go for e6, but it does show that black's a little bit hanging on by a thread here. h3 kicking the knight would be my first instinct, because if I can send my opponent's piece to a bad square, I'd love to do it. Things may be so desperate that black would consider a sacrifice, like pawn takes e5 if you play h3.
Yes, and now it's actually mentioned, maybe after rook takes e6 we get a knight takes f2. And there you have it, a little intermezzo there.
Ah, and that's being played right now.
Wow.
So scrambling to get enough. I'm a little surprised Fabi played e6. Because h3 looked very powerful as well. But I was just thinking that h3, pawn takes e5, pawn takes knight, pawn takes d4 might be a weird way for black to sack a knight, get 2 to 3 pawns, take over the center, and really change the course of the game. Fabi looking very intently at the board. Look at that. He's
absolutely, yeah.
He's leaned in a little bit.
He is super surprised.
Getting deep into it.
Wow, knight f2. There's a lot going on here, a lot of revel. Obviously, we cannot move the rook back because we will lose the queen. We'll have to take a moment to trade these one offs. I think Fabi is now figuring, do I give another check before I take this knight? I dislike that, but what do you think?
I think he's thinking of taking on e7 pretty strongly because if you play king f2, fe6, the f file is of some use for black, as well as you've passed up the chance to get one pawn, right? So rook e7, you get back a pawn, you isolate the d6 pawn, and you keep the f file closed. It seems to have a lot going for it.
That's true, absolutely. I think you'll lose the d4 pawn in this variation, however. Maybe that's why it's...
oh, yeah.
It's a bit more tricky. Wow. There's a lot to think about. Also... No, it doesn't work here. For some reason I thought queen a4 check might sneak in a little, making it a little bit more difficult. Because you have a lot of pressure on b5. Actually...
Queen a4 check is possible because if b5 you could sack your bishop or knight, potentially, and then save your rook.
Yeah, wow. There's a lot of cool lines that we can see explored here today.
Really funky. And here, technically, the material is equal on the board, but it's an absolute weird mess.
Queen e2.
Queen e2 is the choice. So what is he doing? He's going to put his queen on e6 and claim the knight on f2 is still trapped. He's going to prioritize taking over the light squares rather than taking a knight.
Wow. Impressive, yeah.
That's a pretty shocking decision.
The bar doesn't hate it.
I think even if...
So I don't hate it as well. I'm a big fan of the bar. I always agree with it on that regard. Wow.
Oh, yeah. I always avoid the bar. But I think that even if we were commenting a classical game, we may never have even thought of queen e2 as a candidate move. Now he plays bishop e3. Wow. So the idea is not even to play queen e6.
Yeah, he says, well, this is an awful combination. If I take on e6, I'd lose by pawn on d4. I'd rather not have that, so let me put an intermezzo here. This knight is trapped anyway, and we'll pick him up later.
Yeah, it's true. After bishop d4, there would be no obvious follow-up for white.
Very impressive stuff.
He simply plays bishop e3. Now, if instead of bishop e3, he'd played queen f2, he would have defended d4 and prevented castling.
That's true. So why didn't he
Black
do it?
Would have
was he afraid
probably
of
played rook f8, kicking the queen. She has to keep the d4 pawn covered, more or less. Yeah. And if she goes to somewhere like e3, she blocks in her own bishop, and then after queen b6, black would have a good position.
Good
so
point.
Queen h4 is probably the only move that really makes sense there. Then potentially black has...
Still queen b6, right?
Bishop f6, trying to run her around.
There's a lot of... Suddenly a lot of room to play with again.
Yeah. So it's not obvious. I mean, in theory, white's coming out with a light squared bishop and a knight against a rook, and between 1 and 3 pawns, depending where the tactics go on the attacks on the pawns.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna, very, very hard to estimate.
I'm going to switch back, David. I want to see how
right.
Young versus Abdusattorov is doing. A lot has changed there, so I do want to quickly swim back and see how we're doing. A lot has developed.
Oh my goodness.
Quickly go through what happened. We saw trade on d5. Yeah. We noticed this in earlier stages. Small development, definitely on the queen side, a lot more pressure. d4 is heavily under attack here.
Yeah.
It seems like both sides are playing on the left side of the board, where
which is what black wants. And overall, I can tell you the course of the whole game feels like a lot of confidence for Amin in his position throughout. He didn't go for queen c7, queen c2, my idea to trade queens, because he was never even afraid of White's attack. Instead, A5, B5, all that space grabbing was very aggressive. He wanted to maximize his position in the middle game. And Nepo did a good job to react and trade off all the pawns on the queen side, because now there's no black pawn that can queen. And so his chances of losing are basically very, very minimal.
I think this is super structured, David. We're kind of jumping in here to the end game. The pawn sides are equal with a knight and bishop versus 2 knights. So, first of all, my first question is, how do you, if you want like the corner, how do you break the structure in a way? And would you rather have 2 knights or a knight and a bishop in the situation?
Now that you're on one side of the board, you generally prefer to have 2 knights. But also with bishops, it depends a lot on the quality of the bishop. Like if black had a light squared bishop, they might even be losing here.
True.
Because the bishop would have to sit on some square like e8, and it wouldn't be able to move anywhere. And white could put knights on, d6, f6 and stuff. Try to even trap the bishop and win it. It would be such a bad piece. The dark squared bishop is the right bishop for black, so it should be able to draw the game, probably. That said, I would have traded pawns on g4 when I'm behind like this, and kind of the king is squeezed and the knight on h7 is squeezed. I would have snapped that pawn off on g4 very quickly.
Yeah, interesting. We kind of have this interesting structure where we have 2 weak pawns. Well, actually, white will have 3 weak pawns and black will have 1 weak pawn. So we're gonna have some fun in this one for sure. I think black was gonna try to get the king out and somehow try to get to the side. It's very odd to see. And do you think there will be any sacrifices in these kind of positions?
Any sacrifices? Not that come to my mind just yet. I think black's problem is that their minor pieces are a little bit squeezed and looking for space. The king is actually okay where it is, defending f7, which is black's main weakness. So he doesn't need to try and activate the king in this case. He needs to hold off white's activity. If he could engineer a thing where the rook could go, rook d7 to offer trade, and then if rook b8, go rook d8, defended by a bishop on a5.
Yeah, exactly.
If you could go back and forth and get that rook out from the 7th and 8th ranks, that would help your defense a lot. But black's minor pieces are so awkward, that's kind of a dream for now. Looks like Nepo's trying to trap the bishop on c1, actually.
Yeah, I think first of all, this black bishop is a little bit awkward at the moment. I think the other idea is getting this knight to d6 and put extra pressure on f7. Like you earlier said, we want to put more pressure on that point. But yeah, this bishop is out of squares at the moment, can still go to f4, but will not have a lot of ways to live. It's being pressed into this corner. It's impressive to see white move forward.
He's threatening rook b1, bishop a3, rook a1, right? And the bishop would die on a3. And if the bishop goes to f4, he can probably chase it down with king f3, bishop into h2, and then eventually bring a knight to, f1 or e2, anywhere that covers one of those squares. That bishop will run out of room. So
there you go. We might see this. We might see this happen. This bishop not doing too well here, and we might see. We might see a trap. We might see an endgame masterclass here from Young versus. I quickly want to move back, if that's okay with you. I want to see how the Fabi game is developing, and if we have any cool endgame ideas that we can learn from, because we have a little bit of a material imbalance here. Fabi looking at the bar, he is a lot better. Maybe even grab on b7 here. A lot of us have unfolded, but scary f-file here for white.
Yeah, so black has 2 pawns and a rook against bishop and knight. Base scenario, that's about equal materially. So it really depends on, very specific details in the position. As you say, the f-file is something that white has to cover very, very closely. I would much rather have that bishop not be on f2, but be on a square like e3, where it would be covering squares on the f-file instead of a target on the f-file. Black's got good files for both rooks. That's very important. Any position where you've got more rooks and your opponent has more minor pieces, you really have to have a good open file. Now black's advancing the pawn structure, so that's super committal.
Yeah, I'm super impressed by, like I said pre-show, David. We kind of talked about the players and who they are, and I didn't know as much of Alexei Dreyev because he's more of a the old school Kasparov time grandmaster. He is, but like you said, these the old school players understand how to play the mouse, and they've been getting really far into these competitions.
Yeah. I mean, anybody who's here in these play-in matches is here because they played really very strongly in a 9-round Swiss yesterday, right? Through 9 rounds, they were able to keep up with other top grandmasters. There's a huge talent pool in every one of those play-in Swisses, obviously.
Oh, he dropped the pawn! Rook takes d6, the bar is shooting up. This is, white seems to have found his way into the black's position. Also, a6 seems to be hanging here. e6 is also very
just
weak.
Dropped the bishop back from e5.
Sorry?
He just dropped the bishop back from e5.
Yeah, he just dropped it back.
Of his own volition.
Yeah, he's like, I don't understand exactly what, I mean, I can get the idea behind it, but now a6 is also falling. Or e6. I mean, I'm in the candy store, I can choose whatever I want. This is going south very fast.
Yeah, that is quite painful, and there may also be queen d2 for white available so that you would trade the rooks, bring the queen in, and still take a pawn later. But he just grabs the pawn now, no worries. Now white has a winning material advantage. 2 pieces against a rook with no extra pawns for the opponent. Good targets for the white pieces.
Yeah. And only 10 seconds against 30 seconds. Let's remind everyone of time control. It's 10 minutes plus maybe 2 bonus moves. So we have some time.
G6?
Oh, I was trying to figure out if bishop takes g6 would work, but probably was a little bit too much.
Queen e5. This is going to be very safe. This approach here. Oh yeah, he's got the game over because he's got queen back to e5, trade, and knight e6 check, picking up the last rook on d4.
Yeah, there we had it. Just to end it here, we had an e5 check. And then you said we had...
And he
you can take and play knight e6 check. Wow. There you go. Fabiano wins game number 1. Let's quickly go towards the other game, which is still ongoing. Let's also give our love to Nepo versus Amin Tabatabai, who's going so close to the camera, we only see half of his forehead. Amin Tabatabai is holding on. We've seen a sacrifice. What's going on there?
You asked if there would be a sacrifice. There was one. It was a defensive sacrifice. That bishop on c1, it ran out of runway. But he found a way to get a couple pawns for it. And his chances of drawing are still quite good, actually. He's got enough pawns traded off the board that it's going to be very hard for white to win this endgame.
Well, counting it like that, it's 3 pawns for the bishop, which is an excellent trade-off in that sense. And I actually prefer black in these kind of time controls, because these pawns can go very, very fast. If you're not looking, this h-pawn is suddenly an h1.
Yeah. I think he's trying to force the knight to d4. He's thinking that trading off one knight will make the defensive task a little simpler.
Well, that has happened. He's trying to swing his rook to g4, trying to pick up this g5 pawn as well. And black is... wow, defense... I love these setups, by the way. I have to call it in. If you have this weak f7 pawn and you get your rook like in perfect harmony with the rest of your pieces, you're doing a good job.
As long as you don't allow knight e7, which he doesn't.
That's why I don't win all of my games. But yes, you are correct. It's 20 seconds. 20 seconds.
You've got the idea there, right? You've got the idea.
Oh man, this is tense. Amin Tabatabai, you can see them both. Amin Tabatabai looks super interesting, super fatigued. Jan just looks bored. If I look at his camera, it's not into this position.
Yeah. What's this rook check all about? Oh, now he's going to go back to f5. So he played e5 first, and now brings the rook back to f5. Had he put the rook on f5 earlier, he was afraid of white playing f4 and knight e5, and the rook would sort of be stuck on f5. And now he's traded off one more pawn on g5, and should be a pretty safe draw for black.
Yeah, should be a safe draw for black. Is there... who's playing for 2 results? Would it be black or would it be white?
Almost impossible at this level for either player to win, I would say, but yeah, I don't think anyone's really playing for a win, which begs the question why they're playing versus agreeing to a draw. But
Maybe they're free for.
I don't really see a way for either player to play for win here. King G4 for white blockades all those pawns, but white's not threatening the F6 pawn at all.
Yeah, Giannis is really trying at this point, and I don't. And I like this kind of idea. Like we established the pawn chain. I'm gonna put my pieces on the light squares, and all I do is back and forth with my knight. Try not to like fall for these kind of tricks, but it's a good setup.
Yeah. So for a second there, he was looking at some idea where if white puts the knight on F5, maybe black can play H3 if it's not with check. But I don't see this going anywhere. I don't know.
No, this seems to be...
If something happens, it'll be a big surprise.
Oh, white is trying everything that he can, and I agree, one step away, and suddenly you have a sacrifice coming in maybe, or it is
now
going
king
something.
F5, and you're kind of... Where are you going? You know, knight F2, king F5.
Oh! Oh, no!
He plays it. He's trying very hard. H3?
H3? Do we run? Young! What are you doing?
I would run now.
You are running 20 seconds. I mean, there's all the time in the world in a blitz game to really push this out. H3. Giannis, look at him. He's sipping his cup.
What? I forgot that if you run all your pieces away from a passed pawn, it could queen.
Unbelievable. And this is
I'm sorry, I don't know.
This is amazing. Wow. I mean,
I'm sorry I said there was no way either player could win, but I don't understand what Jan just did there.
This is, wow. Wow. And we see it here in the results, ladies and gentlemen. Fabiano Caruana won his game against Alexei Drev pretty dominantly, I must say, but Amin Tabatabai.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Like you said prior to the broadcast, he broke 2,700 this week or last week. Yeah. He won against Jan, which Jan had no business losing that.
No, truly not. I mean, he's ran his king to h5 for who knows what reason, and then the h-pawn just walks down the board. It was really like a situation, Bick, where he should have called a helpline instead of committing suicide on stream. It's inexplicable. I apologize for being certain that it would be a draw and for not even knowing who was trying to keep playing, because I couldn't imagine a winning plan for either player. But I guess anything can happen.
Yeah, now this was... I actually want to go back to that game real quick because, one, I can, and two, I think it's super instructive. We're looking in this position, and we're talking about, well, we could just stay in this position. This knight can jump around from f5. This king is on the perfect square. We don't need to move this king at all. You can never push f5 to lose g5. You can never run this. We take this, and this pawn is blocked, so we're also defending our free pawn. This king is perfectly safe. And suddenly, he moves away towards, I think, the f6 square. Not sure why. And suddenly king f4 coming in. Apparently there is still a move here to make it all seem draws.
There may be, but what's the point of bringing the king to h5? I mean, that's just madness,
I do not know.
right?
And just so you guys know, there's no way to stop the spawn. Even if you try something like knight f2 trying to break it in, it doesn't matter.
King takes.
And
now the g-pawn can come as well.
Get that in.
Or just trap it, sure.
Actually, if I play this, apparently there... Oh, I can take the pawn here, so...
h3. You push h2 first, like king g6, king f3.
Exactly. Now we are.
But, like, where is that white king going? I don't know. Like, from Jan's play, it almost suggests that he thought there was still some kind of chance for white to win, but I don't know what idea he might have had. I mean, you only keep playing moves if you think there's some way you could win.
Absolutely. Let's look back to the scores and give a little of an explanation for those who just joined in. This is a 2-game match. We just saw Fabi winning very, very convincingly and Jan making a huge mistake. Let's see if he can be better in round 2, which will start in a minute or so. Alireza versus Eduardo will be delayed. They'll play their game on August 8th. And Pavel versus Rauf, they delayed their game by an hour, so we shall have more chess when they start in half an hour for these games. So super excited. What's the game plan for Jan? He's gonna be blacked out. How do you get back into this winner mindset after such a horrible blunder?
I don't know. You're asking for like a suggestion or what I expect to happen, because I don't expect him to recover from that game. I mean, I think that's the kind of thing that just loses you a match when you're playing 2-game matches. I mean, if you draw the game, second game you're playing black, you could win with black or with white in rapid games. Anything can happen, but a mistake like that, I don't know. I mean, I think a break is the best thing you can try and do, and try to forget it a little bit. So I think he did take a 1-minute break, ran to the bathroom, came back, and that was probably the best move you could do if you want to get back on track.
Bathroom break is the way to win chess games. Write that down. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in game 2 of Nodirbek versus Jan de Parmentier. And also, Fabiano started his game against Alexei Dreyev. And we see the opening here. I think it is... Is this the Alpen?
Yeah, C3 Sicilian or Alpen Sicilian.
There you go.
Yeah. And he sort of transposed him to a main line by playing the Alpen on move 3 instead of move 2. So he transposed him into a main line where the bishop is stuck on C8. So he sort of picked Jan's opening a little bit, pushed him a little bit in a certain direction. Knight A3 has the idea of knight B5 and bishop C4. So Nepo just pays the tribute tempo with the queen right away to get out of the way of that. I've had games where I made the mistake of playing like A6 to stop knight B5, and then my opponent played knight C4, and I couldn't cover knight to B6 properly. So I think, especially if you're not super booked up and not planning the opening, I think queen D8 is quite a reasonable choice from Jan there.
I think it's one, very reasonable, and two, you have to, like you said, you have to get into your opponent's mind. You got to pick an opening that's not that well studied. I mean, we're one move away from rearranging all our pieces back into the back row. It doesn't seem like black has made a lot of progression in these last moves, but knowing Jan, he'll be playing super fast, and he'll be have something up his sleeve.
Yeah. I mean, he's got like a typical pawn structure for a French or a Sicilian. The pawn structure is an accomplishment for black, right? If it were a normal Sicilian with white having a pawn on E4 and black having a 6, and D6 is a big accomplishment for black. If it were French defense, then playing C5 and trading off white's D pawn would be the accomplishment for black. So he's got the pawn structure accomplishment to show for the time that he's spent and got him behind on development, right?
Absolutely.
That means it's on white to sort of do something with the active pieces, because white's definitely 2 moves ahead, I would think, on development.
Yeah, but it's hard to, like you said, it's hard to pick a weakness in black's structure anymore. If someone plays A6, if I really go into bullet mode, I want to play like A4, A5, get my knight on B6. Maybe that's why it's played here. I don't see anything else at the moment. Probably also just bishop E2 and castling. Make sure you're safe. As we showed we're doing what Fabi didn't do last round. He also didn't play it safe. He played rook takes C6, which was a brilliancy by our Chess.com engine. He was been awarded by that as we move forward in this game.
Yeah, the other thing you could do in this position as white is put the bishop on F3 or G2 to try and harass black's B7 pawn and make it hard for black to complete development on the queen side. That's another idea, but with knight C4, he's kind of signaling that he's looking at the B6 square, as you said, with the bishop on E3 and maybe A4, A5. Yeah. Black has a very convenient move, knight D5, at any point to cover that plan, so...
There's a lot to unravel. There's a lot to unfold. Also, knight D6 looking juicy after the bishop F4, maybe. Maybe that's what white's thinking. We don't know. What I do know is we're going to quickly swap her up, because I'm super interested to see if Dreyev, with the white pieces, also find his way with a good opening out of it. Let's jump into that and see what we have going on. Wow. It's we've seen a lot. This came from a... Real quick.
Black's missing the dark squared bishop, so you would think a Nimzo.
That's correct.
Yeah, black is going to be able to trade off white's central space advantage with the C pawn. White's going to keep the bishop pair for the moment. Sometimes white lags a little bit in development, spending time on like queen C2, A3 and stuff. So black's going to try to attack light squares before white finishes organizing their pieces. You know, white's got that extra dark squared bishop. So E4 is a point to attack, and there's also often counterplay at the B3 square. or black, which, okay, is going to sound very abstract to anybody who's not 1800 plus, but there's ideas where you put like a knight on c5, you go bishop c6 to a4, or queen e8. You bring the pieces into a4 and b3 and sort of take over some squares on the queen side, and there's an open c file to play with around that, and just sort of eventually it generates something. Hard to explain concretely, but
yeah, and let's not forget we're looking for like awesome positions for black to develop their pieces. White is the one that needs to win here. A draw also doesn't satisfy. It's a 2-game mini match, so a draw and you're out to Division 2, and Fabi should go on into Division 1. So I'm looking aggressively, right? We need to do something. So we don't necessarily want to trade. We want to play Bishop D3, go into the attack at some point whenever it makes sense, and try to make something out of position. But I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think that
gone really well at the opening.
Yeah, I don't think that Dreyev necessarily needs to play super aggressively. For one thing, it's not really his style. His style would be fairly consistent with being satisfied that you've got the bishop pair. Minimize Fabi's counterplay against e4 and b3. Just sort of defend those points, get castled, try and play a really long game. So
I think that's what we're going to see.
He plays rook d1 so the queen can tuck when the rook comes to c8. He's not going to play bishop d3 because after knight c5, his bishop pair will be exposed to getting traded off. He'll just be looking to play like, bishop e2, f3, and castle. And it's going to be Fabi who's going to be looking for more aggressive moves, despite being the player who needs a draw, because white has this long-term advantage of the bishop pair. And there's always this short-term, long-term thing. Right?
Yeah.
Who does the long-term favor? Once you figure that out, the other player should generally try to play for something short-term. Once you know that, if nothing happened for the next 40 moves, your position would gradually be worse and worse. Then you look for more aggressive things, which is why, if white had spent time on f3, I was already thinking about f5 for black, trying to explode the light squares.
Absolutely right. On that, you're trying to... Black is the one that's trying to push here, but white is pretty satisfied with his position, plays it free, keeps it stable. We'll see what black will push forward. And I kind of want to talk to you. If we look at the players right here, we see Dreyev chill, lean back, analyzing the position.
Mm-hmm.
And we see Fabi like very, bend over towards the screen, really focused onto his table. And when I was playing over the board a few months ago, I was like walking past all these players, and I see everyone like moving forward, really focused. And my question to you, David, is: do you check your posture, or is that important to you when you're playing chess? Because chess players have incredibly bad posture when playing the game over the board. Over here, though, I was super curious to think how you react to that.
Yeah, when I'm playing, all I care about is winning the game. So I'm willing to sacrifice my posture for 3 hours or 5 hours or whatever if it allows me to see one extra variation that somehow makes the difference. And in terms of their two postures, I would say Fabi had a more concrete posture. Like, to me, it looked like he was calculating variations. I can almost feel like bzzz, like variations going. And Dreyev, he looked a little bit more like, bishop pair, e4 square. Is the c file going to be more important or the d file? It felt more like he was considering things rather calmly, maybe comparing it to other positions he's seen before. He's a technical player who has a lot of experience, so he's going to be, aware of, in what situations can black play f5? What games have I seen from this structure before? So that was kind of my take on their postures.
There you go. I love that. I'll sacrifice 3 years of my life. I can get an extra variation in during an over the board game. That's going to be my new my new memo.
Are you saying 3 hours of bad posture knocks 3 years off of my lifespan?
Well, I mean, if you do it over the course of 60 years, I don't.
60 years. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Eventually, yeah. But it's always like, I just need to win this game. And you're not necessarily planning to have bad posture for 60 years, right?
That's true.
They're trying to eat healthily and so forth. So hopefully you can make up for it away from the board.
Well, black is making up for the dull, not really the dull, but the more easy middle game going up. We see h5 coming in, very aggressive. What we're going to do with this pawn? Are we going to throw it all the way to h3 and try to break open the system?
I think he wants to poke it all the way to h3 to break White's light squares a little bit. I would expect as soon as it gets to h4, White would play h3 to stop it there. And that dark square weaknesses for White, but White has the only dark squared bishop, so it can sort of try and cover those weaknesses. Fabi's play this game has definitely been not a plan that I know. Let's put it that way. Just vaguely looking at it, it feels like he let Dreyev achieve everything that White wants to achieve. You know, safe structure, sheltering that bishop pair. Stable advantage for White, one would think. I really would have thought something more aggressive sooner. And now, of course, h5 is a very aggressive looking move, but even that is a move I don't know exactly where it's going to lead. So, yeah, not a plan that I would have come up with here from Fabian. It's going to be interesting. Anytime you see something you don't know, it's an opportunity to learn something, folks. You know, if somebody says something you disagree with, don't call them an idiot, but try to understand something about what they're saying. They play a move. A chess move is an idea. They play a move that you don't understand. This is your chance to like learn, what's this plan? What do we do here? White's center looks so solid. What does this h pawn generate?
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. Like you said, h4, h3, and there's not a great way to... If I could tuck this knight on h5 and go to g3, I kind of get the idea, but not as easy to do that as well. Dark square are dominated by the dark square bishop, who is the only one in the position. He's doing pretty okay, and whoa, he did not play h3. He says, I don't mind. Let's make it work.
What's the idea here? Does bishop g5 trap the queen after queen e5? I don't see the follow-up. I don't see why Fabi can't play h3.
Let's put it on the board. h3.
Bishop. Yeah, bishop g5.
And we say bishop
he's
g5.
Played it already.
Queen e5.
Queen e5. Yeah, if f4, the queen escapes on e4 quite nicely.
Yep.
So, I don't see the point of queen c1.
That could run into some trouble maybe with this bishop and pawn.
Mm-hmm. Okay, because the knight on c5.
But you always
recapture c8 would be hanging.
Yeah, you could always move back. At some. Wow, yeah, you're right. There's a lot going on here. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking, Vic, that White's plan with rook c2 was to maybe play, you know, b4, trade a rook, attack the b6 pawn with your bishop. Just take it very calmly, embrace trades. What is queen c1 for? You know, rook d to c1 would have been more consistent with that than queen to c1. So what does he have in mind?
Quick question. Queen e5 has some attacking tendencies. Maybe trying to break open with f5 again, as you spoke of earlier. Maybe we see h3 at some point. But White is pretty comfortable on the queen side. He's going to say, like, well, I'm going to keep it there as it is. I love the idea of b4 here. Trying to get some trades in, trying to move it further, and just asking Black, what are you going to do here on the king side? h3 does solidify the position here a little bit more, and we're going to see where this to a shocking endgame, which he had no reason to lose.
Yeah.
But looking at his position, he's doing pretty okay.
Yeah, I mean, he's got the bishop pair for himself, and he's gone to an endgame, which in this structure looks fine for Black. White's c-pawn still on c3. One of the first things I check, if White has this pawn majority on the queen side of 3 against 2, you want that pawn majority to be really far advanced to be a factor in the endgame, where Black has to fear a passed pawn or a breakthrough from White on the queen side. Instead, it looks like Black's got a very, very free hand. Bishop pair is a very nice advantage for Nepo here.
Yeah, no, it's a very nice advantage for Nepo. Like you said, the bishop pair is going to be very, very, super important during these endgames. And I'm always wondering, in these kind of equal positions, there is some differences, but again, the pawn chains look pretty much the same here. How do you move forward here? Do you go to the center, or do you go more to the flanks? How would you approach this position as Black in a must-win situation?
Yeah, I mean, the the main idea is to advance your e-pawn at some point, but it's hard to pick the exact moment.
I have to jump in real quick. Knight d5, and we have a fork?
Right, so that's been what's been restraining e5 up to this point. He has bishop c6 to avoid losing any rooks here. But after bishop c6, bishop f3, is he planning e4?
Let's quickly show it on the board. He did not play that. Let's see how that worked.
Bishop f5.
Out. Oh, apparently there's a big move here. Is it just e4?
Try the e4 move.
Yeah.
It's a normal move. The idea is if the knight takes either rook, we take on f3 with check
why
and then
didn't
recapture
he
the
play?
knight.
Is there something else we can play here? Oh!
Bishop takes c4.
That's a knight angle.
Block the defense of the knight.
So bishop f5 is played. So we will we lose a rook here? I'm confused.
Well, okay. The rook on c2 was trapped by this bishop f5 move.
I see.
White defends it looking to recapture, and then the knight will be able to take one of black's rooks, and the bishop pair will be gone.
Yes.
Or black can play bishop e4, check bishop f3, and trade off the knight, and again the bishop pair would be gone. So it feels like, I don't know, Nepo played e5 at a very complicated moment, rather than massaging the advantage he had longer, and it's not clear that he has any winning move or idea here.
No, absolutely, and I 100% agree with you. It seemed like just what I meant to ask, like, do you go for the center or do you go for the sides? And Parmeshi went for the center, gets the attack, but lifted his 95, and maybe he missed the implication of bishop f5 and bishop f3, and really trying to, that these rook trades aren't enough. He really wants to keep this bishop, but I don't see anything else rather than taking. Maybe you could go back or go to d3, but it doesn't make any sense. Why would you have taken this anyway? So we probably see bishop takes d5, and I don't know who's better in this position.
Yeah, I mean, black's probably still a drop better because the knight on b3 is badly placed. But it just feels like compared to the bishop pair situation before, the advantage is much more fleeting rather than being kind of locked in. Have they just played this trade?
Yeah, they just played this trade. Bishop takes d5 has been played. Rook to d7. Yeah. The bishop are gone all the way for white. We have a knight versus bishop now, and this seems pretty okay. Whenever this knight sees the light of day more, we do have a passive rook, so I do like black's position a little bit more, but it's definitely defensible.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to know what he was thinking, if we want to try and puzzle it out like a mystery, we would have to go back to the moment with bishop f5 and ask ourselves, with the white rook on a1, what happens if white moves the rook on c2 to c1? Does black have anything devastating there? And I guess black would have bishop e4 check, and then after white has to block, you take the knight off of d5 and you grab the pawn on b2. And you've got a free pawn, c3 becomes weak, f2 could be a target as well, and this looks good. So potentially, with bishop f5, Nepo might have overlooked rook a c1.
There you go.
And obviously it would be when he played e5, right?
Yeah.
But he would have thought, like, bishop f5 is going to be really strong. Maybe he didn't evaluate that rook c1 was fairly defensible for white.
Well, the pieces have been moving, we've been grooving, and we are now in this position where black has his pawns. I love that. If you have a dark square bishop, you always see these GMs and IMs.
Yeah.
Let's put all the pawns on the light squares. Make sure these squares are weak. Yeah. I always thought, like, hey, I have a dark square bishop. I'm putting all my pawns on dark squares so I can defend them with my bishop. 200 IQ brain. No. But the great players never did that. So weird.
Oh, that's like fingers on a chalkboard. Oh. No, this is beauty, right? You can cover all the weaknesses with your bishop. You can make barriers so the white king can never move up the board. The knight can never move up the board.
Yeah, but how are you defending this pawn, David? Huh? How are you defending this pawn with the bishop? You cannot. There you go. That's why you always put the pawns on the same squares. I'm kidding,
previously defending it with the g6.
Let's not go in that. We do have, obviously, on the light squares, you have a lot more mobility. As David said, don't listen to me. But do listen to the wise words of David Bruce. And white is actually, I love white's position here. We're two moves away from winning another pawn.
Very powerful. The rook maneuver, a3, very, very powerful maneuver. Targeting A5, targeting B7, targeting F5, and Jan's G5 move was very aggressive, but it left him with some weak pawns, and I think that this match, he sort of missed his opportunity. That E5 move just was not the right time.
I think Jan's going to be out. I hate to call it this early, and I will not call it this early. You never know, but I do not see a winning position. Yeah. He's down a pawn. He's down on material. He is down on time by 1.5 minutes, something we do not see Jan Nepomuceno do a lot. He's usually always up on time. This does mean that his position is wild. His only chance here is to break through with one of his kingside pawns, and I just don't see it happen, David.
Yeah. No, I mean just rook G8, king H3, rook G5, and you're out of stuff from the black perspective, right?
Yeah.
Rook G8.
Yeah, no,
king
absolutely.
H3, rook G5, attack those. Kicks this bishop to a bad square first, perfectly good as well. After the bishop's on D6, you can go rook G8 to G6 or rook G8 to G5. It's killer, and honestly, if this were a must-win situation for white, I would expect Amin to take this one home.
Whoa! Sorry, bishop takes F2. The bar is dropping. There's a lot going on. I don't know exactly what happened or where it went wrong, but we just a pawn.
Well, he was.
Go ahead.
If he brings his bishop back to D6, everything he has is hanging. So instead, he trades it for the knight with a fancy trade. Bishop F2, king F2, E3, and then the pawn trades for the knight.
Yeah. And while he does not take that pawn, I love that. He has a little bit of a hidey hole, but the king is cut off by this white rook, and this is looking pretty grim for black.
Yeah. Well, no, not great for black. White's fine.
Sorry,
White's
grim.
Fine. He can just push the H pawn or the A pawn.
Grim will step. While my dog is doing stretches in the background, ignore her. She's doing her best, living the life that she can. King G3 just played, and well, white here is how you defend this pawn. It's also, I think it's a super interesting position because white's pawn is also a white's pawn for just moving forward. Do we just keep checking him?
I mean, basically, at a certain point, you start checking, right? So, at a certain point, when the pawn's on F2 and the black king is on G2 and black's actually threatening to queen the pawn, then you would just play rook G8 check, push the king off to, let's say, the H file, and then you go back to F8, and they have to bring the king back to defend the pawn, and just back and forth.
Exactly. And I think we see that happening. I think white can even still move one of these pawns forward because there's no rush for it just yet. And maybe
white can play C5, H5. Yeah, white can play C5, H5, whatever they want with the pawns.
Wow, I think it's going to happen. I mean, taking a long time, already a minute on this move here, isn't quite sure how to handle this.
No, I feel like he's having a little bit of nerves here in this situation. His moves are not looking particularly logical to me. Ever since bishop takes F2 happened, it feels like he lost some of his confidence. Like he's so close to winning the match that suddenly he's not. He
dropped his rook.
There's a move.
Wow, I didn't take it.
Drop the rook.
Interesting.
Finds rook F7. Just the kind of move to freak you out.
Just to say, chat, if you would have taken this, it would have taken the rook away from the promotion square, and black would have queened here, which is why he didn't take it. Yeah. See a little bit of a dance. And push the pawns, baby. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I mean, he's freaked out, but there's no way to lose this rook endgame with 2 extra pawns other than basically hanging a rook or something. So it'll come out okay somehow or other.
Well, it's only 1 pawn now, but that shouldn't matter. We're going to run this pawn all the way up the board, and some reason we can even sacrifice it for this pawn. So if anything... Oh, here's another one. We cannot capture, ladies and gentlemen. This will allow black to promote. And he sacrifices. He calculated this all the way to the
Just every now and then hits him with that, are you going to freak out move.
It would have worked, but it would have worked on me. I'll tell you that. With 10 seconds left.
Yeah.
But yes, this will be a draw. This will be a draw. There we go. Amin Tabatabai moving forward to Division 1. Congratulations to our man Jan. Definitely not happy there, but we got to congratulate the winner. Fantastic stuff by Amin Tabatabai. 1.5 against half.
Yeah, and you saw that breath of relief he gave, right? I called it, Bick. I knew as the game ended, I was like... And 1 second later, he did the same thing. He
lost?
What's happening?
Fabiano lost. We're going to Armageddon.
Bishop pair in the endgame. Bishop pair in the endgame. We're going to get to see an Armageddon.
Wow!
Show us how it happens.
Incredible. We're quickly going to go forward. We have a lot of games also later on, but let's quickly go for this position. I did not expect this. White? Definitely a little bit better. This H-pawn was just picked off as we predicted. As you predicted, this H-pawn was just picked off by the dark square bishop at some point, and White just meticulously and slowly moved forward. Who says you cannot teach old dogs new tricks? Well, Alexei Dreyev taught himself new tricks, got better at online chess, and defeated Fabiano Caruana, who was the first seed. Bishop F6! Beautiful!
Yeah, now that's the dark square breakthrough.
Wow, that is fantastic stuff. And at the end, we saw it all crumble down. The pawn running down. We are going to Armageddon. Ladies and gentlemen, and already off the bat, who do you think is going to win the Armageddon game?
I guess Fabi's still a bit of a favorite, but you know, it's just a single game. These things are close to toss-ups. Basically busted Alexei in the opening in the first game. Well, no, Dreyev had chances and then hung that pawn. Yeah. I'll still go with Fabi. We're going to
go with Fabi, and we're going to go on to a break, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to go back with an Armageddon game for Fabiano Caruana versus Alex Dreyev. We don't know the details yet, who's white or who's black. We're going to give you that right after this break. This is the playing phase of the Julius Baer Generation Cup. We'll see you right after this.
You guys play chess? You want to talk about it?
Yes, we do.
Let's do. Oh yeah. Where do you play chess at?
In our room.
Okay, when I say chess, the first word that pops into your mind.
Protect my queen.
Hikaru.
Intelligence.
Strategy.
Tactics. Toby Maguire.
Oh my God, you saw Pawn Sacrifice?
Yeah.
If you're on Tinder and you're scrolling and someone has a chess player on their profile, is that swipe left or swipe right?
Swipe right is good, right?
Yeah.
Then yeah.
Instant swipe right.
Okay, super into that.
Right, I'm into it. Yeah.
You're into chess?
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably whatever the swipe is, not interested.
You're not interested in chess players?
I'm not interested in chess players who are on Tinder.
Can you name a chess player?
Yep.
No.
No, I cannot. Anna Taylor-Joy.
Capablanca.
Wow, name another one.
Oh, Kasparov.
If you name 5 other world champions in the next 15 seconds, I'm gonna give you $50.
Karpov, Spassky, Holgar, Carlsen, and Anand.
Holy shit, he did it. You get $50, dude. Oh my God, we just lost $50. Whose idea was that?
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Julius Baer Generation Cup. We are Armageddon. I was going to explain the rules real quickly. We're going to do that during the game because these two couldn't resist themselves. They already started. Fabi with the black pieces. Did you get some timing bits for us, David?
Yeah, so Fabi bid 754 for the right to choose colors, which obviously almost everyone's going to choose black with draw odds. We had one really weird bid in the previous stop of the Champions Chess Tour where somebody bid like 3 minutes and took white and gave their opponent draw odds, making no sense. But in general, they're always going to pick black if they win the bid. So you get 754 in black. Alexei's got the normal 10 minutes. And they probably dropped the 2-second increment, right, Vic? Traditionally in Armageddons, we get rid of the increment so people can literally flag as they're trying to take advantage of their draw odds.
No bonus time. Absolutely no bonus time or increment for this. Like you said, this will be all down to the wire. But the time that they have is what they say. I'll quickly take you away from the chess to talk about what we have going on. Armageddon, draw, and black will win. So white has to win in this position. They just bid. Fabi bid a whole lot lower, so we are really good on that. That's why he got the black pieces with that time, and it's all or nothing in this case, David. And if I'm white, this is exactly what I want in a position. The stonewall, give me g4, g5.
Yeah, let me just mention from the bids, we can often conclude quite a bit from the bids about what the players are thinking and feeling, what opening they want, what they're expecting in the match. And Andreev, I think, really wanted to have white. So he's probably very happy with Fabi's bid and with having the white pieces because he only bid 9 minutes for black. A 1 minute time odds is very, very minimal. I would think average would be around 8 minutes. So if you see anyone bidding 7 minutes or less, they're really confident in drawing with black. But if you see someone bidding in the 9 to 10 minute range, it basically means they'd rather just have white. And that tells me that Andreev is, kind of afraid of like what opening to play against Fabi, how to handle Fabi's legendary opening prep. And he rather play a game where he gives up draw odds, but he gets a comfortable position for himself.
Yeah, 100% agree on that. And I think he's happy with the position. He's a little bit taking off by knight takes e4 because you might think, hey, we could win a pawn here. We're feeling good. But your h4 bishop is hanging here with some mutual things going on. Oh, there's also c6. Oh, it is kind of... Why don't you just take on e4 here? Help me out here. Why is this bad?
It's a bit of a mess. One option after knight e4 would be to just play bishop takes h4 right away.
Right.
And then that's sort of like a clean piece trade, and the knight on e4 has to continue on its way.
Yeah. No, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. And then
but your d takes e4 would be more exciting.
It might be exciting. Did it happen? No, we see knight takes c6. We saw a trade on d7, and white is moving forward. Usually in these kind of positions you want to have your knight on e5. You cannot play f6 because this rook and queen are very very difficult. And once this knight is on e5, the rook comes to f3. We start pushing these pawns. We have a nice little attack. The bishop is looking at it. All your pawns, all your pieces are scattered towards this king side. So I'm a big fan of these kind of positions. But we're going to see if this is going to go. We asked the chat actually, and the chat with an astounding 84% choose Fabi to win this Armageddon, and I don't blame them. Fabi is has been playing really good, but he did lose the last game, so he has something to prove to himself.
Yeah, and I think Andreev has some confidence. He was happy to have the white pieces. He believes that he can win an endgame with a slight advantage. He believes that he might even have chances to win a drawn endgame. So I think he's looking reasonably confident, and things should be pretty close. But I would also side with the fans expecting Fabi to have the edge.
David, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, of course.
Do you think...
That's what I'm here for.
Do you think Fabi is looking fresh? Like, Fabi fresh?
Is he looking fresh?
Because we do have his air things monitoring his air quality at the moment. Special plugging to my boys from Airthings Masters. Thank you guys so much. We do. It's super hot there, 26 degrees. I am in the Netherlands here. It's raining, it's storming. It's like 20 degrees here. But it's 79 Fahrenheit there. How's the air quality where you live, by the way, David? It must be super hot as well.
Oh, well, I'm actually in a period of moving around at the moment. I'm in Hawaii, where the air quality is perfection. Doesn't get fresher.
There you go. Well, I can talk about pressure. Like there's a lot of chess puns I can make, throwing up some air quality stuff. We can talk about pressure. We can talk about the heat. We can talk about looking fresh. But his air quality is good, and the moves have also been looking good. As I'm looking at this, Black is slowly taking more and more space. F6 came in without this knight to G6 that we talked about, because this bishop drew back and is making sure that's not gonna happen. Super well foresight by Black there moving forward, and I'm a super big fan of Fabio's position here.
Yeah, that bishop is supposed to be slightly bad in this structure. Generally, the claim is that white has a slight advantage because the bishop on c6 or b7, where it used to be, would be blocked by the d5 pawn and could get outplayed by white's knight. Sometimes white can even play bishop takes e4, sort of trade into the pure knight versus bishop and just try and, you know, show that you've got one of those situations where the knight can outplay the bishop in a locked position. But with this plan of bishop e8, f6, Black actually neutralizes basically the entire white advantage. That bishop has acceptable scope. White's knight is no longer on a great square, and it looks like, you know, maybe it's just going to go to f2 and trade at some point. And Black is basically without problems, you know. So right now, the draw odds is starting to rear its head.
Absolutely, and he's... will we see a panic? Will we see like a crazy g4, g5 push at some point? Or do you think like Alexei Dreyev will keep his cool and slowly improve his position instead of taking weird chances?
For now, I would expect him to keep his cool. I would think the position would have to be much more dramatically bad for white for him to go for a reckless attack. That's something that I might do in an equal position against Fabi. But I think Dreyev is going to recognize that his odds of winning are almost always going to be better in an equal endgame than in a slightly bad attack.
Yeah.
But that said, how is he going to extricate that bishop? Now there's the threat of f5. He's going to have to play g4 here. So he may be forced into the reckless territory that I was saying he would probably want to avoid.
Fabi says, if you're not bringing it to me, I will force you to make some reckless moves. And here we go, g4. Yeah. The bishop is pulling back, and I think we need to see bishop g6 in a trade-off, or you will lose your bishop here. This is...
I think technically...
Go ahead.
There was another complicated option last move, e4. And, you know, by rapid chess standards, he stopped and thought about this for a bit.
Ah, I see.
Right. Yeah. With idea to either take and take, or play e5 and try to win the knight.
Yeah.
Which would be like a full pawn sack, honestly.
It would have definitely spiced up the game, and I think it would have worked if we had a little... Oh, he does it! A little bit later, but we do see e4. We do see your idea coming in. King takes e7. Yeah. E takes d5 will be the idea. We're going to pick up some pawns. The craziness have started.
Yeah. Yeah, also, after king takes h7, e5 check, bishop g6, we'll see why he threw in g4 here. Now he has the move f5.
Wow.
If I'd done this e5 check idea to win the knight with my pawn on g2, then after bishop g6 hitting my queen, I would probably be falling
Actually, you can already take on d6 here, because we have a little Mexican standoff. As you probably don't call it like that.
Oh, yeah, and after the rook moves, you even have rook takes e6, so you're really getting fair chances for white.
Impressive. Let's see what's happening in the game. We see king takes e7.
What's a mess?
Did not play e5. We do see a lovely pawn chain. This knight is trying to come in, and we have fire on the board.
Yeah, that's exciting. So Dreyev did go for something exactly in the style you're asking about. Something a little bit reckless, something a little bit exciting. Knight moves off of a prime blockading spot. So that's a bit of a surprise for sure.
Yeah, where's this knight going?
He wants...
Obviously f4, but what's the... Maybe we want to go h5 or g6, but this bishop, I love this bishop in the back. It's just covering all the big squares, and at some point, hold out, because we're only a few moves away from getting this queen in here. This is exciting stuff. I love this.
Yeah, but there's the third pawn, and it's like, why not take it? Take it.
Yeah.
And he does.
Absolutely. Gotta grab some pawns, gotta move forward a little bit. It's complicated. If a king side attack doesn't work, you gotta make something happen, but I'm looking queen d5, bishop c6, and I'm asking, what are you going to do? Probably knight f4.
I mean, he's going to go knight f4
the
moment you go queen d5. He's not going to wait for the battery, but then you're going to pick up the pawn on a2. That's an adventure that's available for the queen if she wants some adventures.
Oh! I called one right! Let's go!
Yeah.
It's gonna go in my book, my 15 most memorable move callouts. Yeah. I've got 12 so far, so got a whole life ahead of me. Queen d5 coming in, like you said, knight f4. We're losing another pawn, but white gains the initiative, and I say go for it, Alexei. You have my blessing. Can we see?
Yeah. I mean, there's no way you want to save your pawn and allow bishop c6, right? I mean, that's not
no.
Truly an option.
I think this was the only move, and we're kind of feeling out how we're going to pursue this. I don't probably rook f2, make sure everything is nicely defended before going super ahead. Do you want to push d5 at some point? I feel like you want to, but it's impossible.
We want to, but Fabi will not let us. You know, if we put ourselves in white shoes, it's going to be sadness, because I don't think Fabi's going to let us do anything that we can think of. Alexei is going to have to pull out something on a different level if he wants to get Fabi from this position.
Absolutely, rook f2 is on the board. Fabi quickly responds with a b4. More light squares for his bishop open. Quick reminder, ladies and gentlemen, if you just joined us, you see Firouzja and Inturuzaki do not have a score. They'll be playing on August 8th. We do not have them, and we did have the other game, Elyanov versus Mamedov, just started, and the final public service announcement is, this is Armageddon. There is no increment, there is no bonus time, but there is fire on the board, and we do have some action after b4. White is in a super difficult position where he wants to push d5, go to d6. Black is not letting him, and he might give up too many pawns for this to work.
Yeah, he played the exact move I would have played, rook a5, keeping the a pawn from advancing and joining the fight. And this, you know, in theory, could keep the rook on a8 passive and the a7 pawn a bit weak. So it's what I expected, but the problem is just simple trade and attacking c3 is what I expected from black, and you know, I don't see anything very good for white here. So
no, this is super rough. You're gonna lose this pawn.
There may be a crazy move possible here. Imagine rook c2, Bick. Would that allow rook takes d4 from black?
Let's find out.
Breaking white's structure with a series of cross pins.
Absolutely.
And the idea is queen d4, queen c2, or pawn takes d4, you go queen takes queen, knight takes, and then rook c2.
And there you go. Then it's over. Lights out. Is this
or
going to happen?
Just
no.
Take on c2.
We have rook f3. Also defends the pawn. We're moving up a little closer, but this king is... it's a hot summer day, and he's prancing around in his bikini. It is not the best time. Put your clothes back on, because there's a lot of heat coming your way on this square.
He's planning to tuck himself on g3 or h3 at some point.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's gonna be airy.
It's definitely gonna be airy.
Meanwhile, a6 to save the pawn and bring the bishop out to b5. He's saying that rook b5, bishop b5 will win some material. After rook b6, I don't even know.
It's a lot. It's a lot to uncover here. White only has 1 minute. There's no increment, ladies and gentlemen. There is no increment. He has to win in 1 minute, and that is a tough but not impossible task. We've seen crazier things happen. The result, if black draws, if black wins, they will move on to the division 1 of the Julius Baer Generation Cup, and black is just cruising through. White just doesn't have an attack.
Yeah, looking super active here with the bishop coming out. All white's icons are, you know, immobilized and blockaded. Very free position for Fabi. And one strategy here would be to do something like rook c7, rook c8 really quickly and just let white's clock go down a bit.
Well, the clock turned red. That's because they're under a minute. White did have some space finally on the king side, but again, this knight doesn't do too much. There's no pawn breaks at the moment. There's no sacrifices at the moment. This would take way too long to happen. If I could make 2 moves, maybe that's an idea, but black is just cruising here, going towards the end. White's down on time.
So c3 was hanging. There's a weird deflection tactic on e7. But basically the idea from black is against knight e7 check, you just play king f8, and white can't take your knight on d5 because their rook is hanging. And if they go knight back to g6 check, the king walks out to e8, and you've taken your pawn for free.
Yep.
So.
Well, I don't think that's even necessary. 15 seconds until we see the master putting up a great show, defeating Fabiano with the white pieces last round. Super impressive, but unfortunately Fabi stepped up in this game, and he's showing it.
Yeah. Yeah, second game was a great game from Alexei. You can feel happy about it, but it's not going to be enough to knock Fabi out of Division 1. He returns to his rightful spot there. And, yeah, we got to keep Division 1 full of top players, right? I mean, Nepo didn't make it, so they definitely need Fabi up there.
Yeah, talking about that. Well, we do see the time run out. Do we see a huge reaction from Fabi? No, this is just a normal Sunday afternoon for him, which is one nice and tidy. And we have an Armageddon win. And congratulations. If we can see right here, the scores have been updated, ladies and gentlemen. Fabiano Caruana. Yeah. Oh, well, Dreyev seems to be running there. That's not correct. I can guarantee you Fabi won that game,
updated,
so don't worry about that. Let's get it off the screen. Fabiano going through, and I mean, Tabatabai defeated Jan, the publisher, earlier. That doesn't mean we are done just yet with the chess, ladies and gentlemen. I want to unravel what we just seen, but we have another game that has just started. We have, well, just started. Right. They're almost done. It's Pavel Elyanov against Rauf Mamedov. And I think we should pay them a little visit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that despite our graphic being slightly off, the fans who've been watching are going to understand that the score is that Fabi has advanced, and they will be ready to see another match here and see who else will be joining top players in Division 1. Magnus Carlsen, Wesley So, Nodirbek, Abdusattorov, and Denis Lazavik all waiting, and now we know 2 more of the names who will be in Division 1, Fabiano Caruana and Amin Tabatabai, the newly minted 2700 from Iran. And here we've got some players who are not from the newest generation. They're sort of from my generation, Pavel Elyanov and Rauf Mamedov. Very strong players. Elyanov definitely has been over 2700, even as high as 2750, I think. A very, very strong player. I saw him playing in Division 2 last time around, and here he's got a chance to move up a spot into Division 1, where I don't think he's made an appearance yet. Game 1 of their 2-game match, and we've got quite a controversial position, right? White's just sacked a pawn on b2. The black king on h8 is going to be weak to White's bishop pair.
Yeah, no, it's controversial is a way to say it. There's a lot going on here. b5 just pushed, and we see some action on the board here. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. b5, and Rauf is a seemingly good position. We're talking a lot about the bishop pairs and the knight versus bishop. It seems like White is enjoying the bishop pair, but man, these attacks on the queen side is impressive.
Yeah, so I mean, in the air is some kind of exchange sack on b2 followed by bishop d4. Any idea like that for now would have been refuted by the fact that rook takes d1 is check. So tucks the bishop on f1, and now can consider some more aggressive options. But I think rook takes b2 still doesn't work. So Elyanov needs something to break Mamedov's position where everything is defending itself for the moment.
Gotta break the ice somehow. It's not easy in this position. As you said, it's also fun because these two have played a lot. Rauf Mamedov and Elyanov, like I said, they are from not the young gun generation that we'll be seeing, but they've been playing some super impressive stuff. I specifically remember Elyanov doing really, really well in the Chess Olympiads. These two must have met a lot of times, and I'm not sure. I love this h5 move. I love that we're just playing on 2 sides of the board here. This knight looks a little bit awkward. Is there a way that we can make it better, or is it in the perfect position here?
Yeah. Well, no, we definitely want to make it better, but first he's getting the king off of that diagonal, getting out of the way of rook takes b2 ideas. He wanted to sink his pawn all the way to a3 to anchor the b2 bishop and free up his queen. And Elyanov played a3 to avoid that. Even though the pawn on a3 may be vulnerable, he's keeping black from settling into a situation where everything is defended and it becomes easier to play your moves under time pressure.
Oh, ho, ho, ho. What's happening here? The bar does not
Grab the
agree
pawn.
with this greedy pawn grabbing. I've been watching too many Yasuo run
grab the
videos,
pawn.
which I agree.
Well,
Bishop
there's
takes
bishop
b5,
takes
the queen is not
b5.
defended?
Yeah. Yeah,
going in?
that's what happened.
Wow! White's back in the game.
Yeah, back in the game, the bishop pair breaks out. Black's queenside pawn structure has entirely collapsed for a pawn grab that was not advised. I think he had not calculated this correctly when he took on a3 because I don't think he would have misevaluated. I don't think he would have wanted to do this. So.
Yeah, I think he missed that no longer this queen was defended, so bishop takes b5 was an option. He quickly moves it back, but this is huge for white. All the pawns have dropped.
Yeah.
None of them stand
All
anymore.
three.
We have the bishop pair.
Yeah.
We're up a pawn. This is a disaster for Black's position.
It's a 3-for-1 deal. Not something you see every day. But Black's counterattacking on the dark squares. Strongest he can.
Why did
Surprised the
I'm
queen
surprised,
didn't
yeah, why
come
did you stick with the queen? I want to go back to it real quick. After a check, I'll advise you go somewhere to h1, and isn't this...
Right. You want to go on the second rank here? Yeah, queen d8, also an interesting
Queen d8, yes.
candidate move.
Oh, that's a good point.
Black.
That's a good point. Look at this pawn.
Yeah.
Didn't do it. Let's go back to the game.
like-
There's only 4 seconds to get 8 seconds. They are both playing. Oh,
my
it's
God.
made a 2!
He's just checkmating him.
He's
in 2
checkmating
moves.
him! Oh, you hate to
Now,
see it.
how did the queen get from c4 to g8 without Black seeing it?
Let's
coming?
quickly look at that. Wow, we just caught that in time, and Ralph Monadov is not happy. Queen to c4. Suddenly miss the cheeky check here. Maybe he mouse slipped. I'm gonna...
Maybe he wanted to go to e8.
Yeah, maybe he
just
mouse
didn't quite
slipped.
get there.
I'm gonna say that he maybe mouse slipped, but even then...
Yeah.
Wow. That is unbelievable. Queen e7, and we see here, ladies and gentlemen, this is what you called check and made into the business. This is... I need to catch your breath.
Wow. So Elyanov came up with something.
He...
And that a3 move was so important, Walter. If we want to say, like, what did he do that got him from... Whatever, we saw the bar was in Mamedov's favor, right?
Yeah.
But what did he do to come back from that game where he needed to come up with something? I think the key move was actually a3, not letting Mamedov play a3, which would have created a situation where everything's defended, right? The game turned on some tactical mistakes, and tactical mistakes come up when your pieces aren't defended. And so he played a3. He knows that that a-pawn is basically dead at some point, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's isolated, it's blocked by the a4 pawn, it's attacked by the bishop on b2. Like, it's a huge risk. You put that pawn there, you basically know your pawn's going to die at some point, but you don't let Black create that stable position that's easier to play in time pressure. And then he got some chances.
He got some chances, and he capitulated off of that. Very well done by Elyanov. Will Ralph Mamedov come back, or will Elyanov find his way the first time into the division room? We'll be back to find out right after the break for game number 2 of this exciting match. This is the Julius Baer Generation Cup play-in, and we'll be back after this break with game 2 of this exciting event.
You guys play chess? You want to talk about it?
Yes, we do.
Let's do. Oh yeah. Where do you play chess at?
In our dome.
Okay, when I say chess, the first word that pops into your mind.
Protect my queen.
Hikaru.
Intelligent.
Tinder, and you're scrolling, and someone has a chess player on their profile. Is that swipe left or swipe right?
Right, I'm into it. Yeah.
You're into chess.
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably whatever the swipe is, not
You're
interested.
not interested in chess players.
I'm not interested in chess players who are on Tinder.
Oh, I get that. In fact, that checks out. If I ask you to name one chess player in the world, can you name a chess player?
Yep.
No, I cannot.
Anna Joy.
Capablanca.
Wow, name another one.
Oh, Kasparov.
If you name 5 other world champions in the next 15 seconds, I'm gonna give you $50.
Karpov, Spassky, Holgar, Carlsen, and Anand.
Holy shit, he did it. You get $50, dude. Oh my God, we just lost $50. Whose idea was that?
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. This will be game 2 between Rauf Mammadov and Pavel Yanov. My name is Wouter Bik. I'm the esports producer for Chess.com. I'm here with chess coach extraordinaire, content creator, the amazing international master, David Proust. For those who do not know, you remember the name forever now, and you will remember this game, Rauf Mammadov against Pavel Yanov, which will go down into the books because we already have a very interesting opening.
Yeah, I've never seen this position. They're only 4 moves into the game, and I've never seen it. I mean, okay, Elyanov's a big Carl player, but Mammadov's playing some kind of weird quasi-advanced variation. Very weird.
let's look at it. So this is the Caro-Kann, and we saw this knight h4 immediately, which is a bit of a weird one. You usually see if this happens, bishop g6 or bishop g4, and he moves away around. But knight h6, also Rauf was like, huh?
Yeah, he was surprised. He tried to catch Elyanov in a surprise. He's like, this knight h4 move is super weird. He'll never expect it, and Elyanov bangs out knight h6. And now he's implying that on bishop takes h6, he'll play queen h4. Unfortunately, we won't get the following position, which would be hilarious to me. Bishop h6, pawn takes h6, knight takes f5, e takes f5. Now that would be a fun position.
I think white would have a
pawn
slight
structure,
edge. Slight edge.
You know, when you get doubled pawns, it gives you open files, right? And in that position, black would have 2 open files and white would have none. So you could make an argument for it, but those pawns are just too much, too bad, too many double isolateds. So his real plan would be just to play queen takes h4, and after knight f3, white is now 2 tempi down on the Caro-Kann. Bravo. This is an opening which I'd never seen before and will never see again.
However, what you see a lot with the Caro-Kann is either h6 or h5 to tuck your bishop in. And that has successfully been blocked by white because you cannot move this pawn, and this knight doesn't really have great squares unless you go back to g8. So,
okay.
That is, I'm playing devil's advocate, right? I'm trying to get something out of it.
If Elyanov just wanted to stick with opening theory that he knows, he could play knight g8 at any moment and transpose to the main line of the short. I think the knight f3 variations are called the short variation of the advanced Caro-Kann, although I'm not on top of the names, but he could at any point play knight g8, and I know it would transpose to main lines.
Gotcha. All right. Well, we'll see how it's going to happen. I actually play this position a lot with black, these kind of structures where I have the pawn on g6, but this knight loves it on f5, and this d4 pawn gets work really, really quickly. If we trade these off and these pawns after c3 come together, and we get this knight to f5, d4 becomes very weak after queen b6. We get a bishop there after g6 and d5. Like, if we can get such sort of structure, black is very favorable. It is a lot of moves, but we might see a future with this knight ending on f5, putting pressure on d4.
Yeah, I think a lot of players who are newer to chess and have heard that doubled pawns are bad might wonder why white doesn't just take on h6. And in general, in the Caro-Kann, black allows bishop takes h6 in all sorts of positions, and the reason is they feel that the dark squared bishop becomes so strong that it compensates for that bad pawn structure. And as long as you feel confident as black playing that position with your dark squared bishop and your pawn structure bizarre, then you don't need to play that knight g8 retreat we mentioned. You can try to play for much more with Bik's idea of putting the knight on f5, and it'll put a lot of pressure against the d4 pawn.
I think that's what we're going to see now. Knight to d5, f5 is you never want to play g4 with these positions. You can always move to h4 because it is defended. So we will not see, we'll see this. Like I said, we're not going to see this move. We can always go to f4. Actually, you can take on d4 immediately, but even if it was already
white has to.
It is a good
minimum
position.
We need to defend d4.
I love black. That's pure, because I play these kind of positions a lot. So that's why I finally understand chess. I finally understand the position. So now I'm like, all right, you should do this. But looking at the cameras here, Rauf looking a little bit flustered, shaking his head a little bit. His head in hand. He's not happy with the position.
Yeah, I mean, you sort of calculate ahead, and every position you look at doesn't look like what you want, I think, at this point for white. So, you know, and also because it's basically like a standard Caro Kann where you're down 2 tempi, it's also not like a bad position that your opponent doesn't know, right? There's a certain practical chance, like the Armageddon game that we just saw Dreyev lose to Fabi.
Yeah.
Even though the position was bad, there was always a certain chance to it because that passed pawn on e6 with the pawn on f5, it was just an unusual kind of position, and therefore there's a chance that Fabi doesn't know all the right things to do. Now, Fabi did. He played b5, he played actively. He didn't try and defend. He counterattacked in the center. He figured out what to do very convincingly. But there's always a chance or a hope if you're in an unusual position. But he's got basically a standard pawn structure in the center that they fully recognize, and that probably 95% of players over 1600 would recognize this kind of advanced French, advanced Caro kind of position and have sort of an idea of the main plans for black. So from Mamedov's perspective, like, where's your chance? Where's your hope to get Elyanov into a situation where he doesn't know what to do?
Well, there are a few things I want to comment on. Those are great points. First of all, we have a French where the bishop isn't stuck on c8, which is fantastic, and you didn't lose any tempos. The second thing is, we're talking about fun structures. I want to show another one that might be funny. If we get this kind of pawn position, this looks very ugly if this is e6 pawn being very, very weak, but we will not have that happen. We will not see these trades. We will see knight to f5 and knight b3, and I want to talk to you about this, David. Elyanov spent 2.5 minutes on the move knight to f5. Why?
I don't know.
There you go.
I mean, my first thought is that I would have played it instantly with full confidence that black's position was great. The only move you would normally watch out for would be g4, which is a move you covered that, you know, sometimes g4 can force the black pieces back, sometimes black just plays knight h4. But here with the d4 square just hanging, I really don't see any danger for black in any g4 option for white, so it's hard to even guess what he was considering.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he already calculated the end of the game. You never know with these top players. And I love black's position here. As said, we have the open c-file for the rook at some point. This bishop can nicely tuck itself here. Look at either f2 or put some extra pressure on f5. We also see a lot of positions where black castles to play f6 and then try to open the f file as well. Black is playing with all the cards, and this is a bit of an awkward bishop, I guess. It might belong on f4, but
so white has two options of things they could try to undertake. One is c4, and the other is to play bishop g5 first to poke the queen so you don't get a queen trade, and then play c4. If none of that is good, of course, you can just sort of sit with bishop f4, c3, and sort of hang around and just wait on black to slowly improve their position and outplay you. Bishop g5 is the most interesting and controversial. And, you know, black could play something like queen c7, or they could play f6.
Yeah.
And really just like come forward with the challenge. And this is the danger for white in playing bishop g5, is you might worsen your position a lot after f6.
We see queen c7 here. I do want to entertain the idea of pawn f6. If we trade it off, now you cannot go to f4, so you have to go all the way back to d2 or maybe h4. Where would you go?
I would say d2, yeah. h4.
Let's go to h4. Now, like I said, this is not a double pawn, but we do have an open g file that black might take care, and we have the center. So maybe f6 here was an idea. Maybe the idea after f6 was just to push back and take on a later day. But maybe bishop 7. I know there's a lot of ideas here for black. But we're now in this position after bishop f1. Black definitely in the driver's seat here. King is safe. We have the center control. The pawn on e5 is super weak. Cannot be defended by f4. And we are cruising in this position.
Super safe. So ideas for black, you can play h6 to force that bishop's hand. You can go bishop h5 to try and win control over d4 and e5. You can play rook c8 and look for pressure on the c file.
So much.
We can also look for a chance to play f6, even here.
Even here we can play f6. I'm wondering what you do here with white, because knight e4 is coming here. Which is going to be a little bit annoying. I guess bishop e2 saves the day, but again, h6, and I don't know, probably I'm too aggressive with my h6 and g5. There's no need to do that. You are in a very safe position. Let's just play on this e5 pawn. Let's play rook c8. Let's slowly develop. Let's look at c2 here. Do a little battery.
Yeah, I think...
Fantastic.
I think white has to look at defending the e5 pawn here, so bishop f4 is the first move that comes to mind. And then there's a huge controversy whether black can play f6 because the bishop's not defended.
Let's do it.
In that situation, I think that's kind of like the big question that Mamedov's considering right now. Is like, are we going to straight up lose the e5 pawn? And if so, under what circumstances is there relatively more of a mess on the board? Because this is a situation where it's bad enough that white wants a mess. They're in a must-win position, right, for the match. So even a draw is not enough. It's no use keeping the position about, slightly worse instead of much worse. What you really need is something that has enough of a mess or unclear that you can turn it around, just like Elyanov did in the previous game in a terrible position as white. He managed to get some messy stuff on the board that allows you to make a full comeback from a bad position to winning if your opponent slips.
Absolutely. I don't, maybe you have to, I was looking at bishop d3. I was looking at spicing the position this way. I don't think you could take on e5 because of the pins that might follow. I think that if you get into this position, it is weird enough.
Wow. That is very weird what you came up with there. Very fancy.
I don't know if every move was correct. That's why I played very fast through it, so you don't see the bar going up.
No chance to see
honest.
the yo-yo.
I was just pushing those moves, and I'm like, if the end is fine, everything was fine, right? Yeah, absolutely did look at it. Okay, move by move.
I'm like, no bar. Let's put up a double wall here. All I see is the
bishop
board,
d3.
And at the end, you sort of had the same number of pieces on the board for both sides.
Knight takes. I believe you could just take here with the rook or with the knight, but you can also maybe.
Well, if you take with the knight, we definitely have bishop takes queen.
With that.
We
So
don't
rook
have to
takes.
sack our queen. And rook e5. Here you played very controversial queen e5. Maybe bishop f3 would have been an improvement.
So we'd have to
removing the defender, trying to come out ahead. White's got a fancy move queen e1 to try to survive, and then I would say maybe bishop e4 would seal that rook in and win in exchange for black.
Yeah, I think we could maybe still play f6 here for the double attack as well. There's a lot. Wow, crazy stuff. We see queen d3, and white taking a different approach, keeping this dark ledge for bishop maybe for a rainy day. But wow, black's cruising.
Wow, and he doesn't even play the safe move. Very often, right after I grab a pawn, maybe some kind of like guilt about grubbing pawns or something, I'll move that knight to g6, right? Just plop stuff in front of my king and say, I've got it covered, I've got my extra pawn safely. But here he goes to the opposite side of the board, threatening b2. That's a very confident move for somebody with essentially draw odds in the match at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's up a pawn, and he hasn't given up anything. Like usually when you're white, you have the bishop pair. That is that's the way forward. What is the win condition? I have a bishop pair. I need to make it to the end game, but it's so hard to make it to the end. I'm still looking at bishop d3 and trying to play g4, right? Like, how do we make something happen? We're gonna play this. Do we take on f5? Right. Do we?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, you don't have, in this line that you just played, you don't have time for g4 because the knight b2 moves. Black would throw in knight takes d3, right? And then we have no attack, no point to what we're doing, right? So bishop takes f5 would make sense there. The problem is, black's already taken 2 extra pawns, and now you're forced to trade off pieces in order to try and recover your pawns. You're only playing towards a drawish situation, right? You're not even playing to win here.
True.
For white.
True. No.
Knight on b3 can't have any impact. Black puts a rook on e8, and it's just not a lot of prospects for white. As white,
he's creating prospects. I like
protecting the pawn on b2.
Yeah, no, I like that. Defend b2 twice, That's his foreignness. Now it's defended twice. Why did he play bishop c1 immediately? I don't know. We'll talk about that. I'll give him a call after this. Bishop d3 now is able. There is no idea, and g4 might come into play with g5. I'm starting to get some Stonewall vibes again. I know this isn't currently a possible move, but we're creating mayhem on the board.
It's like Stonewall without the wall, right? Because white doesn't have e4 or e5 occupied. It's like
it's like a little straw house going on at the moment.
Yeah, it's like the little straw attack without the wall around it. But that said, I mean, white has a threat of bishop takes f5, e takes f5, queen f5, regaining their pawn and just going to a technical position that's about equal. And honestly, an equal position would already be a good start for white with how this game's been going. So, Elyanov pounding the pavement, hitting the initiative here, a4, queen c5, trying to make white retreat the rook to f1.
I don't see a different move. I do.
Yeah,
well, I mean, I do, but you're not gonna like me for this.
Yeah, there's rook e2, knight d4, but it's just.
No,
bad,
what about king h1? And trying to do it this way.
Oh my goodness, you're crazy.
Just giving it up and trying to just. I'm playing Crazy Crash. I'm also playing not with my pieces.
Yeah.
It's someone else's pieces. And like you said before, sometimes you gotta give up a pawn to get some activity going. Yeah, I'm learning as we're commentating.
Yeah, that was not a bad idea, Beck. I think very reasonable try for white, given the situation. But with knight e5, Elyanov's trying to force him into bishop takes f5.
b4, okay.
Pawn takes f5, queen f5. It seems to give away black's extra pawn. I'm not sure why he's satisfied that.
Interesting. Well, it opens up a file and didn't en passant, ladies and gentlemen. You could en passant. It's not a... did you know that there's actually a lot of people saying online that it's mandatory to en passant if it happens? You don't have to, ladies and gentlemen. Don't have to.
Those are people who just switched over from checkers.
That's fair. They're people like me, because I fought for the longest time. Oh, yeah. Anyway.
Okay, so he recovered his pawn. And that's a good start for white. Still, the c2 pawn's very weak, and black's position's fully satisfactory. Bishop on c1 could use some work, but white recovered the pawn without anything disastrous happening, so I would say that was reasonable progress for white.
A small win, for sure. A small win for white. And I was looking at some crazy ideas, so I'm gonna put him on the board because I was happy. What about if you get... So we have to play this. I don't think you have time for h5 and try to get the rook in this way and then put some pressure on h2. Was like one of the ideas. I don't think we had time for it, but I'm feeling good.
I mean, normally we'd be improving the rook on a8 before looking for a fancy move like h5. So, maybe if you played rook e6 and rook a to e8 and you had both rooks ready to go, then you could start using those ideas you're suggesting.
That's true. I need some more patience.
Kingside pawn pushes.
Either way, h5 was kind of, you don't want this knight here because f2 is kind of weak. We have the bishop on there as well. Black is definitely here in the driver's seat. Then, okay, so we're looking for white here. White is in a must-win position, ladies and gentlemen. It's a two-game match. If Ralph draws or lose, he is out of Division 1. He'll be going to Division 2. So we're trying to find what are the win conditions. We have a nice light square bishop, a dark square bishop. So maybe it's trade and try to mate.
Yeah, he just forces a knight trade with knight c4, attacks two minor pieces with his knight. Playing fairly safely. Still pressure on Mamedov to come up with something. It looks like he's down to a minute to play out this game.
It is not going well for Mamedov over here. The pawn on a2 has also fallen. If you move the bishop away, hey, with a pawn pass pawn here.
And where does this bishop go? It's running out of room, actually. Queen a2 is very annoying.
Bishop a1.
Very annoying.
Pretty much the only move, but...
Has to stay on the long diagonal. Maybe d4 now for black, but then queen b7 is messy. It would be lovely to just lock in that bishop on a1 if you could. But yeah, why allow queen b7 when we're in the driver's seat?
Yeah. No, absolutely. And let's
so
take the pawn.
Re-centralizes the queen.
Doesn't want to complicate it. And maybe now it's time for the rook e6 idea and put more pressure on f2, but queen d5 played. He says, I know you're not going to trade my queens anyway, so let me put this here. I'll take some time. I'll play rook c6 or e6 afterwards. And we're going to go full banana hammocks, and I'm going to go to division 1.
Yeah. I mean, he took white's queen off that b7 pawn to do exactly what I wanted to do for black. He gets in d4 and jams that bishop on on a1. Now we do get the en passant. And what's
There's a
next
mate
for
threat.
black
Hold on,
here?
hold on. Don't be...
Stops the mate threat.
Yeah, don't get too comfortable. There was a mate threat, so...
The other game was queen g8 mate, right? If he had played a positional move there and allowed queen g7, it would have been some symmetry.
It would have been it would have been something. It would have been it would have been a blow, especially to Pavel there, who was in the driver's seat. 6 seconds for white, by the way. Babadov is...
Oh my goodness.
Is frozen up.
Queen f3. Just move the queen.
Is it... Did we get a move? Is it over?
I don't
Help?
see any moves.
Also, the players looking confusing. Let me ask. We'll get this sorted out.
The eval bar is still moving. That's the only thing that's still alive. It's going up and down with no moves.
It's it's the heartbeat of the position. It's still going. It's still pulsing, but we don't. Oh, there we go. Black one on time. It seems maybe he disconnected. I am not sure. Let me ask the staff what happens. I do not see a score in there as well, so they are talking it out.
And after he loses on time, we had the moves queen f3 and rook c7 added. So it's really the game's happening in a weird order.
Apparently, the game is still going on somewhere else. I'm not quite sure what's happening. In that regard, we're gonna get some more in, but let's talk about this. Let's talk about Pavel Elenov.
Well, that's very exciting.
The man from Ukraine has been doing some excellent chess in his days, and I'm actually astounded. The kind of game that he showed today. We're gonna get some more confirmation if it's still going on. If it's over, I don't know at the moment, ladies and gentlemen. So
nobody seems to know. So I don't know. We don't know. We don't know what's going on. The odds are that Elyanov, either way, as you say, the odds are that Elyanov will be advancing, as he had won the first game and had an extra pawn in a solid position last we saw here. Maybe another attack like yesterday.
No, I don't think so. I think it is... Either way, they're still very intently looking at their screen, so we'll...
It's true. They look more like they're playing chess than that they are sending messages saying, "Where did my game go?"
No, it seems like they're both done. Maybe they're both sitting in confusion as we are, but either way, we did see a fantastic game unfold. Even though we don't have the results just yet, we're gonna get that to you quickly, ladies and gentlemen. Don't you worry about a thing. Let's look at the other scores that we've been happening during this game. Fabiano Caruana beating Alexei Dreyev in a very exciting game there, David. It was 2-1 going into Armageddon. Alexei Dreyev playing an exciting game with white, beating Fabi very convincingly, but Fabi pulling it out.
The unfortunate thing there, Vic, is that Fabi used a plan that I had never seen before, and I was curious what the point was, and I didn't get to learn the point because it just didn't work out. So, in the end, Dreyev was able to just hold on to his bishop pair, slowly improve the position, slowly trade off pieces, and then once he got to the end game, he cleaned it up with his bishop pair. It's a great game for anyone who wants to study technical chess and how to practice an endgame, how to improve in the endgame. What I would do with that is I would take that position and I would play it out against a training partner with white and with black, and start to learn how to push that bishop pair advantage as much as possible. And then you can always play through the actual game and see the moves Dreyev used and sort of compare that to your own attempts at playing it.
Yeah.
That's what I would do with that kind of an end game, and there's plenty to be learned that way. But I was really hoping that Fabi was going to reveal a whole new plan to me that I was going to be able to sort of
put it in
my bag of tricks.
There you go.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well,
yeah.
It seems like Fabi won. Alireza Eduardo is being postponed till August 8th. Don't think either player could play today. We saw Amin Tabatabai beating Jan Nepomniachtchi 1.5, and that was the biggest upset for me today.
Yeah, and it felt like Nepo did not have one of his better days today. You know, both the first game where he should have agreed to a draw and somehow kept moving. It wasn't clear to either of us who was really trying to win the game, but eventually he seems to have been trying to win the game because he moved away from blockading the opponent's passed pawns and let them queen. That was an unforced error, so to speak, that loss. And then the second game, he had a very, very promising position with chances to equalize the match and send it to a tiebreaker, an Armageddon.
Yeah.
And then he advanced hastily, allowing a series of simplification tactics, and ended up being worse in that endgame and having to scramble to create some kind of a draw. Just not the world championship level player that we're used to.
All right. Well, I got some word. It appeared that Ralph disconnected from Chess.com. A lot of people did. We told him we would investigate. At the moment, he resigned because he was nowhere winning anyway. So it is a result. It is 2-0 for Pavel Elyanov. And that means, David, we have at least 7 of the 8 players for the Julius Baer Generation Cup knockout. We have, let's go from the top, Magnus Carlsen, Wesley So, Nodirbek, and Denis Lazavik already qualified through the previous event, Ancient Rapid. And who else do we have on the list here, David?
We've got Fabiano Caruana, Pavel Elyanov, and Amin Tabatabai qualifying today in the matches we just witnessed. And we're waiting for one more player, Firouzja or Iturizaga. I feel like whichever one we get is awesome, so that match doesn't matter. I mean, it matters to them, but not to me, because I think either of them makes a great addition to this field. You know, either way, it's going to be a great 8 players there. And yeah, I mean, that's a fantastic field. I think Elyanov is going to be a little bit of an outlier by Chess.com rapid ratings. He played in Division 2 last time around, so it'll be interesting to see what he can do in Division 1. And everybody else, you know, has on paper a chance to win the whole thing. I think Lazavik will be an exciting addition as well. I love that we're not getting the same 8 players every time. This new format with play-ins and everything, compared to the earlier incarnation of the Magnus Chess Tour before it was chess.com/Magnus/ Champions Chess Tour.
Yeah.
Getting 1 or 2 new players every time, sometimes even 2 or 3 new players, it adds a lot of spice to it, and very exciting. And so this time, Lazavik and Elyanov are representative of the youngest possible generation and of the middle generation. Be very, very interesting to see what that does with that field.
100% agree, David. I love this format. It's super complicated to put it all together and make it digestible for the viewers.
Yeah.
But it is fantastic to get these new players in. And not new players, but it's not always the same players there at the end. This was an amazing stream. Again, David, thank you so much for commentating with us today. Thank you to all the viewers coming in here today. You guys have also rocked it. Thank you to our mods and everyone helping behind the scenes. For David Bruce, my name is Wouter Bik. We appreciate you coming in here. Stay tuned, because the next event will start tomorrow. It will be PogChamps 5 with all your favorite creators, so don't miss out on that. And this event, the Julius Baer Cup, will continue in August 30th for the knockout division. But for now, thank you all. Stay frosty, as they would say. Thanks for joining in on Chess.com, and we will see you again in the next stream. Have a great day.